Hello, I'll be starting the stream in just a minute. How's it going, everybody? I'm pretending like I have an audience at this point, so. Today I've been spending most of the day working on getting my game ready for Facebook because they just announced that they are pushing their live streaming service a lot more all of a sudden. They just launched a new app on Android, which was kind of a surprise, and it's going to be focused on streaming games. And Facebook is a great platform for the. Like, Emoji Pop is built for streaming to a degree, since you can kind of build levels and play test each other's levels, which is what I'm going to be doing in this stream. But it works really well for Facebook because there's so many more casual game players there. So I've almost got it ready to submit for Facebook Live. That's kind of what I've been doing today. One sec. Let me know in the chat how you're doing. This is like one of the first times streaming for me, so I'm still figuring everything out. So if you have any feedback for me, you should definitely message me on social media. If you're interested in making levels along with me while you're watching, go ahead and go to playemojipop.com. Hopefully it works, since I've been putting a bunch of new features and stuff in the game. So, but you should be able to, if you click the pencil button in the bottom right-hand corner, you should be able to make your own levels. And if you want to, in this stream or in future streams, after you save your own level, you hit the share button and you receive a level link. And you can message me that link in the chats or on social media, and I would love to play it on these streams. So the latter half of these streams, I'd really love to just play players' levels and give them feedback and talk about their game design. And so that I have one level lined up to do that already, but it would be great if I get some more. I think today I'm going to start off with a couple one-page levels, because I noticed when I make the longer levels, even though they're kind of more fun to make and play, they take like a really long time they take a large part of the stream. So I think I'm going to be focusing on some smaller levels. I'll be checking, I'm still integrating the chat into this, so I'll be checking the chat once in a while. One thing I learned how to do today is how to do these sweet transitions. The chat is not available now, but working on that. Okay, so I think I'm just going to get started. Alright, so in previous streams, we've been starting to make levels. Last week I analyzed the first worlds of my game and kind of walked you through how I designed them the way I designed them. I think I want to start off with a little warm-up. We're going to make a little level, a one-pager, as we discussed last week. One-pagers are levels that fit within one screen. So they're really short, and they show the player their ultimate goal right away. So they're very compelling in that way. They also tend to be very puzzly. These are great. There's some kinds of players that really like really strategic puzzles where there's like a perfect solution. So these one-pagers are really good for that. I'm also going to be showing you some of the upcoming obstacles in Emoji Pop that might not even be in the game yet, but we'll be able to talk about them. So last week we designed a one-pager using 6 colors. So I talked about when you make a one-pager, there's 2 ways to kind of think about the tops of one-pagers. Some one-pagers have drop completions, so they'll add obstacles to the top so that no matter how you get to the top, if you just hit the top row, you'll win the level. So that's a pretty fun take on the one-pager level. But I'm going to delete that by hitting the X button here. But it's also fun to put matches on the top. And when you do that, it becomes a lot more puzzly because players have to make all of these matches with the emojis before they win the level. I made one like this last week, so I think I'm going to start... Let's start using this double rocket emoji. That's not something we've used yet. So the double rocket emoji, when you hit it, it clears the whole row. So it's a very powerful obstacle, and players will see these rockets at the top and know that that is their objective. So in these levels in Emoji Pop, giving players really clear short-term objectives is very important, because otherwise, if players don't see obvious points that they're targeting, they tend to just make matches aimlessly. So giving players these really clear goals, it makes them like focus, and they make better strategic choices. It puts them in a more strategic mindset. So there's 2 ways we can do these drop finishes. We could just have a bunch of soap on top. So using this soap row, the player would just have to hit anywhere in the top row, and that would drop the soap. But it's fun to use the double rocket emojis because we can kind of lay them out a little differently. So for example, I could put 2 on the sides and a couple in the middle. That way the players, it's not just about getting in the top row, you have to get to the specific points in the top row, so it's just a slight variation on that. And so also something I should note, while I'm designing these levels, I'm just going to be talking, like, every little thought that enters my head, I'm going to be speaking out loud, and that's a way for you to observe exactly how I think about making these levels so that it kind of informs your level making. So my hope is that when you're making levels, you're going to be able to hear my voice in your head. So that should be my target. Alright, so one thing I'm thinking about is, okay, so I know what the end of this level is going to be. It's going to be these double rockets. One thing I'm thinking about, to start off thinking about how the level is going to be structured, I could start off in a few different ways. I could be thinking about the structure of the level, so that means kind of what shape is it going to be. Is it going to be bulky, where the players have to dig, or is it going to be kind of sparse, where players have to kind of aim using their skill, and there's going to be lots of empty spaces? So I think I'm going to do that for some reason. So you can kind of just... whatever sounds appealing to you, you can kind of just start out at that. Another important choice we have to make is how many colors is the level going to be. So if we have 6 colors, which is the maximum amount you can have right now, that's going to be a more difficult puzzle. Players are going to be getting one of 6 colors, and so it puts more emphasis on the strategy of managing your colors. Also, it ends up, for example, if you shoot a purple bubble, there's a chance you're not going to get another purple bubble for a long time, up to like 11 moves. So these levels with more colors are more random. For example, in comparison to that, if we had a 2-color level just using the colors red and yellow, you're always going to be getting red and yellow bubbles. So managing your colors isn't really that important. So that's kind of the difference between the 2 to 6 color levels. And so depending on what kind of level we want to make, do we want to make it puzzly? Do we want to make it kind of fun where players don't think about colors? That's going to guide that decision. So I think we're gonna, for some reason, I want to do a level where players have to kind of aim and bank off the walls and stuff like that. And I think I'm gonna choose a 4-color level. For some reason, that just sounds right to me. And the key is you often make decisions the first time you start making a level that you, after playtesting, you will realize that they're wrong, or you'll realize there's ways you'll need to alter it in order to make a better playthrough experience. So sometimes when you're not really sure what to do, just make some decisions, decide to make a certain number of colors or a certain kind of pattern, and you won't have to worry about it, because when you play test, you'll realize very quickly what isn't working in your level. So I'm going to start off by putting some colors in the top row. It's important that when we lay down colors in our level, we want to try to keep them kind of spaced out. We don't want, for example, a bunch of blue bubbles on the left side and a bunch of yellows on the right hand side. We want to be evenly dispersed, because it leads to a more flowing gameplay where players don't get stuck as much. So that's why we want to make sure our colors are kind of sparsed out and there's the same number of each color, roughly. So this is going to be the top. So players are going to have to kind of make these little tight matches in order to open up the rockets. And they just have to hit one rocket and then they'll clear the level. So now I'm kind of thinking, what do I want the pattern for this level to be? So I'm thinking about kind of continuing something like this down, kind of like a DNA kind of structure. So I'm just going to start doing that without thinking about it too much. So blue-green over here, since we don't have a blue-green on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we'll need a red-blue. And I notice on this second tier of matches, we don't have a yellow yet, so we need to make sure that we add a yellow here. And then right here can be green, maybe, since yellow, blue, and red matches are in this area already. And I'm just going to quickly continue this pattern. So it's on. If we look at each set of matches going down, we can think of them like little strings. So we have yellow, green, and then I'm going to do red, and then I'm going to do blue. And then I'm going to continue that. I'm going to replicate that same pattern for each of these strings. So we have red, blue, and then next in our pattern would be yellow, green. So I like to look for these little patterns in order to just quickly make decisions about what colors to use. So we have green, yellow here. Next would be some kind of red or blue. So I'm going to do, since the blue is right here, I'm going to put a red down first. And then blue. We have blue, green, and then I'm going to want yellow, red. I'll put the yellow here because the reds, there's two reds in the area already. And again, you don't have to stress too much about making your first coloring of the level perfect, because it's something we can easily fix later on. So I have yellow, red, then I want green, blue. I'm not sure. I'll do green first since there's a blue right here. That should be here. And remember, the X button in the bottom allows you to delete things that you put down. And then on the right hand side with green, blue, we need a red and a yellow. So I noticed in this bottom row there's no yellows yet, so I want to make sure that we put the red one on bottom. And it looks like I should have put the blue right here, so I'll delete that and move it. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows so far. So when making these one-page levels, it's important to remember that on the screen, the player can only see 11 rows at a time. So if you want your level to be truly a one-pager, like we talked about last week, then you'll have to make sure that you only use 11 or fewer rows. On some smartphones, you actually see less than 11 rows because the screens are so far. It dynamically changes it till 8 or something like that. So that's just something to be aware of. Maybe some of your players only see, but 8 to 11 rows is about what you're targeting for one pager. Before we get too into it, I'm just gonna save it and test it out. I found that sometimes you spend a lot of time making a complex level, and then you'll play it, and then after hours of making the level, you're realizing that maybe there's certain parts of it that you wish you had done differently, or you don't like it anymore. So what I like to do is make a quick part of the level, or whatever it is, just quickly make something that I can play. And then by playing it, I see all these opportunities for improvements right away, or I see some of my assumptions that I had when I started the level maybe are proven wrong. So it's kind of like that saying in tech or in business, you should fail as fast as possible. That same principle applies here. So I'm going to save it. And that opens up our level browser, which stores the hundreds of levels that I've made so far. And if we scroll all the way to our last level, this is the level we just made, and we can test it. Okay, so again, I'm just going to be saying everything that enters my head while I'm playing the level. When you playtest your level, it's good to playtest it a couple different ways. So one way to playtest your level is as you. So I'm guessing since you're making levels in Emoji Pop, you probably have a pretty firm understanding of the game. You've probably been watching my YouTube video tutorials, and so you know all the strategies, the simple strategies that save you moves, and so you can play it once as like a veteran player. But then after that, you should probably play it as a casual player, as someone who's just picking up the game for the first time. So because you can share these levels on social media for the whole world to play, there's going to be a lot of people that have never even heard about Emoji Pop that are going to try this level. So it's good to consider them as well and to see what that experience is like. Doesn't mean you have to make your level playable for them. Maybe you want to make a really difficult level for experienced Emoji Pop players to play. But it's good to at least know their experience, and maybe if you can, to make it a little more accessible for them as well. So right now I'm just going to play it as me. So I'm given a red and a blue, and so I see a really good couple of higher matches here that will drop a match and thus save me a move. And they also open up a lot of space above, so I'm going to make one of those matches. Okay, so now I'm just gonna often a pretty common behavior of players in bubble shooters like this is once they pick one path, once they start digging into the puzzle, they want to keep going up that path. And that makes sense because the goal of Emoji Pop, the gameplay, like an inherent dynamic, is to climb as high as possible, because by climbing as high as possible, you can kind of chop away at the top of the puzzle and shave a bunch of the bubbles from below, and that saves you moves. So it's good to just think of that behavior while you're designing and playing levels. So now I got a green. So this is my third move. And then I just have to nail this last shot at the rocket, and I win the level. So that was fun. That was like a smooth 4 moves. But that's pretty short for a level, and it didn't feel like there was any excitement. There feel like there wasn't any like chance I could fail as long as I just made the right moves. Like it was a series of steps basically instead of a puzzle that I'm trying to solve. So. But it was good to see how that pattern played, and it's good to like at least test it out before you make a full level. So I start off deciding I wanted to make a full level, a 1-page level. But now after seeing how quickly I went through that, part of me is wondering if I want to make my level a lot longer. And so instead of just going for the top row and clearing it, I really like this pattern. It might be really fun to kind of be chiseling away at it and climbing up to the top. So I think I'm going to do that. Another option would be something I do a lot is after I play a level and it's kind of boring or played out in some way, it's really fun to think of what other obstacle could I add to this level that pairs well with the dynamics I witnessed while playing it that would really like elevate the fun that was already there. So that's another thing you could do. So for example, the level was it was kind of boring, to be honest. So I could add something like dice. And so what dice do is when you hit dice, it rolls to a random color. And so if you hit a die and it rolls blue, it'll make matches with the blue bubbles around it. So that could be like a fun way to add chance into the game to make it more exciting. But I think for now, I'm just going to replicate the structure and go down further. And then I'm just going to see what that experience is like playing the game and trying to climb up while making matches in this DNA style structure. So let's start doing that. So I'm just gonna, because I have 4 colors laid out on each string, I can just mindlessly copy them down the next 4 rows, and that's a quick way to flesh out my structure a little bit. So it goes yellow, green, red, blue here. So I'm just going to copy that. Yellow, green, red, blue. And I'm going to do that for each string. So this one goes red, blue, yellow, green. I'm using my laptop trackpad, so it's only so fast I can do this. It's a lot easier on your you can play this game on your mobile device, and it's a lot easier to lay down the bubbles quickly. Red, blue. But apparently Facebook, they're launching their live gaming app. They did it on Android, and apparently you're able to more easily stream mobile games from that from your mobile devices. So that's going to be interesting. Okay, so one thing I noticed is right here, if I followed this pattern, I'd have to put a blue right here, but there's already a blue here touching it, so that wouldn't really work. Although it would be maybe a good idea to have some bigger matches that might serve as the short-term goals we were talking about before. So if players notice, it's going to be very obvious these matches of 4, they're going to stand out to the player because they're much more valuable and they really stand out amongst this sea of 2-sized matches. So I might just leave it. We could kind of reorganize the colors if we wanted to, if we find out we want everything to be uniform, but this might be interesting. So again, I'm just going to try it and see how it plays. So after blue on this string comes green, yellow, red. This is a pretty fun. I like fun structures that play well, but that also look really appealing. And so this looks like DNA or whatever. So I'm thinking this is going to be a cool level. Yellow, red, green, blue. Yellow, red. I'm hoping I can also use some of the levels I used in my stream as levels in the actual game to save a little time. I think I might have kind of messed up the structure in some parts, but that's okay. Green, blue, red, yellow. This will be our last one. These up and down arrows allow you to scroll through the rows of your level. I think right now you have up to 100 rows. Yeah, oops, I think I messed up a little bit. So I think the green should be here. Yeah, let me fix that. I know, it's a little messed up, but that's okay. So let's just try it. We can just test it from here, but I'm just gonna save it because I don't trust my own coding, so I just want to keep saving it to make sure I don't lose anything. Let's test it out. I'm just gonna refresh so we get rid of those buttons. Still working out the little bugs in the game, obviously. Alright, gonna open up the level by going to the level browser. And again, if you want to, you can follow along with me by going to playemojipop.com on your phone or computer. Alright, let's test it out. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna be telling you exactly what comes to my mind as a player. So I could make one of these matches up the middle, or I could kind of go up the side. This red match, so these are called cross matches, and so sometimes it's possible to shoot a bubble and hit 2 matches at the same time. So I kind of like that I see one of those right away. It adds some kind of variability because I don't always start with red, but here I start with red and it seems like a little bit of an advantage, so I like that swing kind of. And I also see this this larger match of green right here. And so I'm actually really liking that I placed some of these larger matches in the level. Because otherwise, I think I would kind of start aimlessly. I would just, if I was the first time player of this level, I would just kind of start making matches somewhere, and I'd have to learn through replaying what's the best strategy. But because I have these little groups, I kind of have some like goals that I think lead me down a certain path. So I think that's kind of exciting. I might have to actually go back and add up maybe one or two more of these in other places of the level as well. So I'm just gonna start making matches over here. So I could shoot the yellow, but instead I want to switch to green, because by making this green match, I can drop the yellow and save some moves. All right. So at this point, I'm going to start thinking about how I can drop some of these lower matches to save some moves, whether it's kind of by bouncing it off the wall or by cutting it off on the sides. So this seems like a pretty good match here, or I could shoot the blue bubble and knock out this match of 4, but I'm thinking it might be good for me to hit this yellow for now. Okay, so I got a green and a blue. I could shoot this higher up blue, but it doesn't really drop anything for me right now, so I think I'm just going to hold on to it. I might shoot this green match right here just because this thing is going to get in my way, so it'll open up a lot more choices for me. So I could hit this red match right here, and then I could probably make a good cull shot. So culling is what it's called when you drop bubbles. So this would open up a shot that allows me to cull some bubbles, whether I hit the green or the blue or the yellow. So this blue right here is a good shot. So this is a good cross match here for yellow, and it opens up a place to drop bubbles. So this is a pretty good shot here. And then I have this tight yellow shot if I can make it. So it requires a little bit of skill, but it's a pretty good drop point. Cool, and that scrolls me up a little bit. So that's when you make these levels, and now that it's a little bit longer, it's important to think about the pacing of your level. So I started off with 10 moves, and now I'm down to 2. So that section took about 8 moves. It took 8 moves exactly. So 8 moves, that felt like a pretty good beginning to the level. That was like a pretty substantial introduction. So what comes next is what I would consider the middle of the level. And then after I make another big drop, I would hope that after that comes the end, which is going to be like the final test of our level. So I'm going to quit now since I don't have enough moves anyway. I can edit it. And if I go to the edit tab, I can change the number of moves. So I'm just going to do that now before I forget. I'm going to change it to 25 moves for now. Okay, so I'm liking the way that structure played. It was fun. I don't think it needs another obstacle because there were so many interesting decisions, and if I had lost that level, in my head I would have known that there were so many other choices for me to have made that I would be confident replaying the level because I would feel like there's more opportunities for me to learn how to better play the level and find alternate strategies to save moves. I do want to add... I want to make a change on the left side that might make it a little bit easier, which might be nice at the beginning. I have this big blue and green match on the right-hand side, but nothing on the left-hand side. So to me, that makes it kind of more advantageous to go up the right-hand side first. And I don't want it to be like, you have to go up the right-hand side if you want to win the level. I want it to be like kind of even, so I might do something on the left-hand side to kind of even out that advantage. So I was thinking about replacing this red match here with yellow. And then it's a little bit different than these longer matches. There's 2 long matches of 4, but this yellow match is really valuable because it drops everything below it. So I'm liking that edit. I'm probably going to end up getting rid of these rockets at the top because it's not something... So I don't like to use obstacles just once at the end. It feels a little not coherent. When I use an obstacle, I like to use it throughout the level because, for example, beginner players, they haven't seen this rocket in this level when they get to the top, and so maybe they won't even... They're going to be in the mindset of making matches in this DNA structure to cull bubbles. They're going to be in that mindset. they might even overlook the rockets at the top. So I don't know, and I just like the coherence. I like the level to feel like a really solid like unit, like a really consistent experience. So if I could use these rockets somewhere in the middle, maybe, but I don't think rockets are good if you need like really clear points. But I think one of the appeals in this level that I've just made is that the valuable clear points are kind of in the level. That's the main appeal of the level, is to make them yourself, to make these drop points yourself by being smart about the way you shoot bubbles. So for that reason, I think I'm going to delete the rockets. So like, rarely do I make levels that are just structural bubbles, like these emoji faces. Usually I try to add some obstacles, like whether it's soap bubbles that pop when you hit them. So I could add soap or bubble wrap, which also pops when you hit them, just in a different way. But so I think I would add soap to this level if there were 6 colors. So if we had chosen to make a 6-color level, the players sometimes would come across moments where they don't have a great match to make. So by adding these soaps, it allows players to always have a good match to make, because if anything, they can just hit the soap match. But because it's only 4 colors, I feel like, at least in my experience so far, I never came across a moment where I didn't really have a good move to make, So for that reason, I think this is totally okay to have a structural level without any obstacles. So I think I'm just gonna keep doing this, and I'll keep that in mind if I want to add obstacles, but I just don't see why it would be necessary. So now I'm thinking about the middle. So around here's where the beginning ends, because that's where we got to when we dropped that section. So after we make that big drop, players are going to have a sense of relief. So building up to that point, they were trying their hardest to make the screen go up. That's like their main goal. And so it took them about 8 moves, and it could take them a little more if they're not as good as the creator of the game like me. So I need to be thinking about, like, do I want the middle to be exactly the same as I kind of have it now? Or do I want the middle to, like, change things a little bit? So for now, I think I'm just going to leave it the same. Another thing I'm thinking about is this top is going to be very difficult. So when players get to the top row, there's going to be 6 essential matches for them to make. So they're going to have to be clearing a lot of bubbles beneath that in order to access these 6 tiny little matches. So I need to find a way to make it a little bit easier to clear the level, just because I think that's going to make the top really grindy the way it is right now. So one thing I could do is make the matches bigger. I could connect them so that there's fewer of them. I might do both. So on the sides, I might make them bigger sideways. But in the middle, I think it would be fun to make them maybe a little longer going down. And so doing that, I might need to change the other colored bubbles so that they don't all connect. So I'm going to change this to green. And I might change this one to red, because I'm imagining players are going up to hit this green, and then right afterwards another green in that direction. That's not something I like to have in my levels. It's good if you can keep going up one direction without having to repeat the color the same time back to back. Just because that's like a natural player behavior to go up the path a specific way. So that makes a little cross match here too. That's kind of a fun place where players can make 2 matches with one emoji. And I'll do the same thing with the blue on the top. So what I've done is I've reduced the number of matches on the top the player has to make, so it won't be quite as annoying to win the level at the top. And I've made them bigger so that they're easier to hit. The little 2 matches, I could see players, if they miss one shot, then that's going to cost them a bunch of moves. So and it also, by making these matches bigger on top, it sends a signal to the level that they're at the top. So if most of the level is filled with these little two-sized matches, and then at the top they get a lot bigger all of a sudden, that signals to the player these matches are more important. Because they're all big at the same time, players, it's going to signal to players without any text. It's just going to signal to them, okay, this is the top of the level. It's going to stand out more as clear goals. So I think this looks good, the edits I've made, so I want to save it and I want to play the whole level to see what the whole experience is. I might need to add on to it a little bit, or maybe I find that I do need to add some obstacles or make some changes. So let's go ahead and hit test again. Okay, so last time I started off with a red, but I started off with a yellow and a green, which don't seem quite as advantageous. So I kind of like that at the start. I've noticed that I think red is the best bubble to get first. I like that there's a little bit of swing to it, that sometimes you'll get red and you'll feel like, oh, this is my lucky playthrough. And other times you won't get red and maybe it'll be a little bit more difficult. Having this little swing at the beginning that's very obvious gives players more confidence in replaying the level again, because they'll think, okay, next time I could have gotten luckier. I didn't win the level, but I didn't get a red at the beginning, so maybe next time I'll get a red, and then that'll be the time I should win. So having these little moments where the player can obviously see that they're getting luckier or unluckier, it's really good for encouraging them to play the level over and over again. And that's really important, because if players play your level once and they lose and they don't want to play again, that's kind of a signal of a problem with your level. It either means that players don't feel like they can get better next time. So the thing that makes players want to replay your level again is the feeling that they could do better next time and win. And if players aren't playing your level again, it usually means that they don't really see places where they could have done better. They're not really sure what they're doing wrong, and therefore they're not motivated to try again. So you should always be thinking about, how can I make my level more replayable and encouraging the players to play over and over again. And that's what kind of, like, you don't expect players to beat your levels in the first try usually, because that would just be easy unless they get really lucky or they're very good. The real addicting experience of playing these bubble shooter levels is in the replay, in getting them to really invest in your level multiple times, and then that makes the satisfaction of winning your level eventually even greater, and they'll love your level even more having replayed it over and over again. So I could make this yellow match in the middle here. That kind of opens up a little bit of space here. Or I could maybe make this green match. Maybe on this playthrough, I'm going to play less as a veteran and make more just random decisions. So by making random decisions when playtesting your level, it kind of gives you more of the experience of what a normal average player would be doing when they play your level. That's usually how I get the beginner experience of the level. It's by just making random decisions, because that's basically what beginner players are going to be doing. So let me make this green match. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. Okay, I get a blue, or I get a yellow. So I just open up this yellow, so I'll probably just keep going that direction. And then, so if I get a yellow next, that's a really good drop point. In the middle, there's this really obvious cross match here. It's straight up the middle, so that's a really good move to make. So I'm already seeing multiple points that I could get huge wins off of. So at the beginning, that feels really good, and I'm already feeling invested in this level, since it's already giving me those moments where, oh, I feel smart. And whenever the player feels like they did something smart, it puts them that much deeper into the experience. It really leads to a higher sense of investment. I could, maybe I'll just shoot this blue. I'm not really sure whether to do I don't want to shoot this red match here. Would normally be good, but I'm gonna end up hitting the higher up yellow match, which will drop this red match anyway. So I'm just gonna make this blue match. Okay, so now I get the yellow, and I'm definitely putting it here. It's a little difficult, but that drops a lot of the board, so that feels really good. Now I'm thinking I really want a green, so I can drop this and then access the right-hand side. So this is an interesting choice. If I can squeeze my bubble through, I can drop the bubbles on the side. So I'm going to try to do that. So we get a little bit of a drop, and then I get the green. So this is interesting. So Now, I've stopped playing as a beginner a little bit as much now. I think most players would make this green match here, but advanced players will try to bank it on the right-hand side because I see that if I make this green match here, that opens up the large blue match, which would drop the green match and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm just going to see what that experience is like. This would be what more veteran players would do. So again, I have the green bubble, but I don't want to make this green match because I can make a blue match, and then that green move I made would have been for waste. I have a red bubble, so this higher up, there's a cross match right here for me that drops a bubble and opens up the middle, but it's very difficult. The aim line makes it kind of hard to reach, so I like having these skill moments in levels as well, because that's another way to encourage replayability. If players, for example, if I see, I could make this move, but I don't feel confident enough to do that, so I'm not going to. If I were to lose, I would think back to this moment where, I could have made a little bit riskier of a choice, and maybe that would have allowed me to win. And so that makes me want to play the level again in order to maybe make those riskier moves. Also, in the beginning, if I noticed I wasn't doing very well, if the beginning took me a couple more moves than usual, having these skill-based moments in the middle and the top allows me to make up for the moves that I lost. So I need to, if I didn't do too well at the beginning, that tells me I need to take riskier decisions in order to save moves to make up for the lost time that I had. So I'm just going to see if I can make it. I'm not really sure. I nailed it. I'm pretty good at this game. So now I have a yellow and a green. At this point, I could just make the green match, but it's been a while since without a blue, so I'm feeling like I'm going to get that next anyway. Let me just make this yellow match up here. Maybe it'll help me out later. Again, I should have just made this green match. So, again, maybe at this point I'm considering maybe I should have made this green match a long time ago. So that's that question, that mystery of what was the better choice is going to make this level more replayable, because next time it can make different decisions. I'm just gonna keep going up here and hope for that blue bubble. This is a pretty good match to make here. Now I finally get that blue. I could kind of wedge it in here, but it's a little safer to do the bank if I'm able to do it. Okay, I got it. And this red drops a good chunk of this stuff hanging down. Okay, so now I'm firmly at the top of the level. So one thing I'm thinking is I'm at the top. I wish that it was a little more difficult, so I made it a little bit easier by reducing the number of matches and making them a little bigger. But I feel like I'm at the top, and I feel like I'm like a couple moves away. So like this is a pretty good level where the way it is right now, but at the top I really like to make it obviously more challenging in a way. So that makes the end of your level is where you want players to you want the end of your level to be the climax. So if the end of the level is just kind of like an afterthought where you just have to go through the motions of making the matches, it doesn't feel like the climatic conclusion to your level. The end of your level, in my opinion, should be like the big puzzle where it takes like a good number of moves and you're going to see whether or not you can beat it in the number of moves that I gave you. So let me just play it real fast and we can see what we think after. I'm going to be making all of these moves because I know I'm at the end of the level, so I know these top matches are what I have to do. So there's a little bit of skill in the sense that the matches are really high up, so they kind of require me to, for example, I'm going to make this blue match by bouncing off the wall, which is a little bit difficult, but then this green one is even more difficult because it's so much farther away. So there is some interesting aspects to this level. Like, I would say this level is more catered towards beginners. I think because most beginners would be making these little matches, and if they're at the end of the wire, maybe they would make this bank shot here. Cool, so I won the level. I'm just gonna refresh that for now. So in thinking about that level, I think it could be totally good the way it is. I might even add this level to the game because I'm looking for more like simple levels to put in the game that are still interesting but don't require complex obstacles. So I think that was an excellent example of a basic level that doesn't use any complex mechanics, but it's still very interesting because of all the choices that we make along the way. Let me open it up again. By the way, I'm streaming every weekday from now until forever. From 7 to 9, I'll be playing and making levels in Emoji Pop. So just come on by 7 to 9 o'clock if you're ever interested in watching me play Emoji Pop. So let me edit it to open it up again. So let's imagine that I did want to make it a little bit more difficult. I don't want to add an obstacle to the top because, again, like I said, I don't like to just surprise players with an obstacle on the top. I like them to be, if I use an obstacle, I want to be using it throughout the level so players are conditioned to it, and to make the whole level feel like a cohesive story in a way. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of bury these top matches behind other matches. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to kind of change the structure at the top a bit. And I'm going to add matches in between the top and the middle, kind of. So here I'll add a red. So I don't want it to be touching the top. But I do want it to kind of be in the way of the player's objective. I'll add one onto this. So I don't have a yellow in the top right corner, so I'll use yellow here. And then I'll extend the red. So this small change will, so for example, there's nothing here before, and I was able to make this bank shot to clear the green. But by adding a red here, I still can make that green bank shot, but it's insanely difficult. So I'm adding difficulty. I'm increasing the level of difficulty to the end of the level, but it's still possible to get around these matches. And it does require you to maybe make a few more matches at the top, since I like. So imagine also another bad reason why it's good to have kind of longer tops is because imagine the top of your level takes like 4 or 3 moves to complete. If a player doesn't have the best playthrough, or they're just starting out playing your level and they don't really know how to save moves yet, if they kind of lose a few moves at the bottom, they make a few bad moves. If your top's only 3 moves, that means they're not even going to get to your top, or get to your top with more than like a move. And so that's a very frustrating experience because it doesn't allow your players to get invested in the top of the level. And that will deter them from playing your level again because they feel like they made mistakes that were so bad that they didn't even really get to the end of the level. You want your players to get invested in the end of the level and then to fail if they're going to fail, and that's going to get them to replay your level again. Not getting to the top of the level is kind of discouraging because also next time they play your level, the advantage of playing the level again is that you now have all this knowledge about the level in your head that you can use to your advantage. So that's one thing that encourages players to play the level again. But if they don't get to your top, that means there's a whole other section of your level where players have no idea about how to win. And it's the top, which is supposed to be the most difficult, so they might not even play again. So that's why it's good to have puzzly, climatic ends to your levels. So let's just try this. I noticed I had a bunch of moves left over. Let's take off a few. I can change it again later. I'm going to save it and we'll test it out. Alright, so start off with the blue. I start off with the red, sorry. So red, as we talked about, is pretty advantageous because there's a really good cross match here, and there's no cross matches of any other color at the bottom. But also, there's a good place to drop already a match on the left-hand side, and it opens up the side, which allows me to kind of call more bubbles. So I'm not really sure what's more advantageous. I'm just going to go with the red for now. Alright, I see this big green match right away. I'm definitely going to hit that. I could aim for the higher up yellow, or I could aim for this lower level in order to open up the left-hand side. Again, I'm not sure what's better here. I might just go for this lower yellow match so we can kind of scroll the level up. When I play it again, I might use different strategies just to see what the experience is. So I see this giant blue match here. I'm just going to make that for sure. So I could either go up here and make this red match, which allows me to then open up matches that will drop the right-hand side. Or I could drop a bubble right here. I'm thinking this is better because I could shoot a green here or a yellow here, and that would drop the left-hand side, which would mean making this red move was a waste. So I'm going to use this on the right-hand side. And then, okay, so this is an interesting decision. I could shoot the green on the right-hand side to drop the right, or on the left. But because right above the green is a yellow, I'm going to hold off for the yellow so I can kind of try to save a move. And I'll shoot this green on the right-hand side. So I think that was 6 or 7 moves. So, and I get the yellow. So the bottom was about 8 moves still. So that's pretty good. You want your beginning to be like 5 to 8 moves maybe. It should be long enough to get them invested, but not long enough to frustrate them. You want to give them a sort of quick win at the beginning to encourage them. So like it's good to have like 5 moves and then a big drop. And then players feel really encouraged, and that gets them to be invested in your level. So I could make this red match here. I'm gonna do that. Okay, I got 2 blues. I'm just gonna make this blue match. I'm not really sure. That wasn't like the best color to get there. So I think I'm going to do this yellow because I see these clumps forming up above. So I'm going to just try to, as quickly as I can, scroll up the level so I can see what's at the top. So that middle, it's not too substantial the way I played it. It's pretty short and it gets me to the top. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. Just kind of saying how I feel. So I could make a green match on the left-hand side, but that's a pretty tight shot. I think instead I'm going to shoot this blue, which kind of opens up the middle a bit. So this already is starting to feel more like a top to me, which it wasn't before. So I'm making a few moves, and I'm noticing I'm going to have to kind of dig. But while I have to dig a little bit at the top, I do see ways to save matches. For example, I could shoot this blue bubble on the right, and that wouldn't be a horrible move. But if I'm a skilled player, I would wait for a yellow and try to bank it off the wall, and then I would save having needed to make that blue match at all. So I'm liking that the top is definitely feeling like more puzzly to me now, which is what I was modifying the level in order to do. I'm just gonna make this when I don't really know what to do. Oh, so this green match opens up the top matches, so that's gonna be a good move to make. Red, so that's what I was going for, the top red match. So this is what I was talking about. I could try to skip the blue by hitting this yellow, but that's a really difficult shot. Or I could kind of make this slightly easier shot, which opens up the top matches as well. I'm just going to do that since it's a little less risky, but I do like that there's a big win here for players who land this difficult bank shot. And then, so I noticed I have the blue left, so that's another reason why I wanted to make that match. So now I have 2 more matches to make on the top row, the yellow on the left and the green on the right. This red opens up the green. I could technically land this green in the top row just perfectly, and it would drop the entire right-hand side. So I love that there's these really difficult, and so that's something that that was a result of my changes that I just made. There's really difficult shots to make at the top, but they're hugely rewarding. And the reason why that's so good at the top is, imagine I had like 2 moves left. So one of the worst feelings to have playing the level is at the end, you feel like there's no way you can win. So you have maybe like a handful of moves left, but you know you need like a bunch more in order to win. So you're just kind of making mindless matches, knowing you're not going to be able to win, and then you're going to have to replay the level. You want to give players who didn't do as well before to have these chances of winning still, and having these high risk, high reward shots at the top allows them to feel like they're still able to win. Like they see, okay, like now the odds are against me, but if I make riskier decisions and I get really lucky, there's still a chance that I can win. So you want players throughout your level to feel like they constantly have a chance of winning. The second they feel like they're destined to lose, they're already like there's a good chance they're not going to replay your level in order to win. So I'm not going to do that because that would be a very difficult shot, but there's still an opportunity for it. I'm going to make this red match that opens up the green that I have. And now all I have to do is clear the left-hand side, and I have 5 moves left. So between the green and the blue, I'm definitely going to use the blue because that opens up the yellow match. But it's it's a slightly tricky bank shot. And then I get the yellow that I've been looking for. And it's not too difficult because it's a little bit bigger, but there's still a chance to mess this up. So it's not like the player is just clocking out now or anything. Cool. So that made me win. And so thinking about this level, I think I really like it. For all the reasons that I talked about, I wish maybe the middle was a little longer. So if I were to, I'm not going to continue this level any further, but if I was going to give any advice to myself about how to modify this level in order to improve it, I would say make the middle like 2 or 4 rows longer. Because I felt like I had the beginning, and then I had a couple moves in the middle, and then suddenly I'm at the top. I felt like I needed more build up to that top, and because it only took me like 19 moves, levels can be between like 15 to 35 moves or even more. So like I feel like there was still an opportunity for more investment, and I wasn't tired of playing the level. It was fun throughout. Every move feels really good because there's 4 colors. There's a lot of choices. There's lots of green matches. There's lots of blue matches. So I feel like every move I had a lot of choices, and so that felt like really compelling to me the whole time. So I felt like it could have been a little bit longer in the middle, and that would have made the top even more satisfying to finally win the level. But I'm not going to do that now, but that would be my feedback. I'm going to refresh, make sure no one sent anything to me. Again, feel free to play this game alongside with me, and if you want, you could save your levels in Emoji Pop and then share them to me on social media or in the chats of these streams. And I stream Monday through Friday between 7 and 9 o'clock, and I would love to give players feedback on their levels. I have one player-made level that I'm going to be reviewing at the end of the stream, so that'll be fun. It's a pretty fun level too. And then the best levels that I get, I would love to feature in the game itself. So I have a mode. If you hit the bottom left UI button, it opens up the user levels. So this is where I put the best player-made levels. So when you play the main game, you often run out of moves, and there's nothing you can do but wait for your levels to regenerate. So while you're waiting, you can play these player-made levels that actually also advertise the Twitter of the creator of the level to kind of advertise them and gain them a following. And they can play these player-made levels, and if they win bonus moves that they can use on the actual game. So I really love featuring player-made levels, and it makes you basically a published game designer at this point. So there's lots of cool things we can do with your player-made levels. Okay, so now I want to, the last 10 minutes I want to review a player-made level. But before I get to that point, I might try showing you one of the later obstacles in the game right now that I haven't shown on the stream yet. So these are light bulbs, and if I open up my world map, light bulbs appear in world 6, which is the last world that's currently available in the game. So what light bulbs do is they change colors every turn. So normal emojis, like these yellow emojis, they are yellow every move. They don't really do anything. They don't change. But the big difference is these light bulbs, I can program them to change colors each turn. So I'll show you how to do that now. By hitting these gray bulbs, the A and B bulbs, I change what colors they appear as. So if I make the first bulb red the first time and then just keep clicking it to shuffle through the colors, I'll make it yellow the second time. I'll actually add some red emojis too. So the first bulb will be red the first move and then yellow the second move. So I got to click on the bulb and then I can add it to my level. You can add it wherever you want. So let me just test it out. Let me refresh. So this is an obstacle I was working on some changes to. So I'm hoping the changes work. You might have to save your level before testing them out. That's a bug I'll definitely fix tonight. Let me just see. So add red and yellow. So I'll make the first one red, yellow. And then I'll make the second one yellow, red. So they'll kind of flip-flop. And then I'll just save it. I'm hoping it works, because otherwise I'll have to find something else to do, but there's a lot I can cover. Test it out, and it works. So I shoot the first bubble. I realized something. Okay. Oops, wrong level. Okay, so let me shoot the yellow first. Oh, wait. Yep, these are broken. Let me find something else to do. I will fix that Let me refresh. So light bulbs are a little broken now. It has to do with all these updates I made to the game and also getting my game ready for Facebook Live. So that's something I'll fix after the stream. Instead, let me show you some of these other emojis. So this is an emoji that I'm not even sure will work. I haven't used it in a long time and it's not in the game at all. So this is going to be very exciting. So first I'm going to cover my level with bubble wraps. So there's a big difference between bubble wraps and soaps, which I should highlight. These are like two of the most basic obstacles. And so I'll put some soap here. So I'm going to save it and open it. Okay. Oops. Also, I should note that when you make a level, you need to have colored emojis in your level. Otherwise, you won't get any colored emojis in your queue. So I'll do red and yellow. Test it. So bubble wraps and soap, they pop when you hit them. That's the core mechanic of them. But the big difference is bubble wraps. When you hit them, only the ones that you touch burst. So let me do that again. So it kind of makes it so you can chisel away at them, but they don't all pop as a cluster. But on the bottom, we have these soap bubbles. And so the big difference is these soap bubbles, they all connect into one giant piece of soap. And so when you hit them, they all pop together, which makes them amazing for like creating drop points for the player. Like so. Bubble wraps are kind of fun to dig through, but you have to make sure you don't use them too heavily because otherwise they don't feel like a very strategic obstacle. They just feel like you're being forced to dig unnecessarily, which can be frustrating for players. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to put bubble wraps in my level is because I wanted to showcase the dagger emoji. So the dagger emoji is the first truly skill-based obstacle in the game. So one of the big differences between my game Emoji Pop and other bubble shooters is that other bubble shooters, they do everything they can to avoid including skill in their games. The reason they do that is because of the way that they're structured. Most bubble shooters follow the Sega map progression system, which means if you've ever played a game like Candy Crush, the way these games are structured is one at a time. So you're given level 1, and you have to play level 1 over and over again until you beat it. And then you get to go to level 2, which you play over and over again until you beat that, and then you get to go to level 3. So they can't So while they make a single track of levels for all of the players, and in this player base, they have some players who are really good at these match 3 games. They're veterans and they've been playing them for years. They also have people playing these games like Candy Crush who've never even really played a video game before, so they have very low gaming skills. So if they were to have, this is why most Candy Crush obstacles or match 3 obstacles in general, they don't have any like interesting skill-based mechanics, because they need to make sure that they don't punish players with low skill. So for example, in level 17 of Candy Crush, imagine there was an obstacle that was like a timing based obstacle where you had to like hit things a certain way according to like time. So most players that aren't very good at gaming, they're not very good at like timing things. The reason they're playing, they can only play like simple tapping kind of games. So in bubble shooters as well, if they were to have skill-based obstacles, that means that some levels using these skill-based obstacles would be nearly impossible for many of the players. And because of the structure of playing levels one at a time, and the fact that if a player gets stuck on level 17, they'll have to replay it potentially dozens or hundreds of times before they win. That means that including skill-based mechanics would totally punish these players. It would totally block off the progression, and many of these low-skill players would quit when faced with skill-based mechanics. However, my game is different because the way it's structured is you play through these worlds, and you have a certain limited number of moves, and when you run out of moves, you don't lose the level. You simply have to wait for your moves to regenerate, and then you can continue playing. So the player's never walled off. There's still mini levels in my game as well, though. So when you're playing these worlds, you'll come across these stars. These stars, by hitting them, you will unlock mini levels. And so mini levels are more like normal levels in casual games like Candy Crush. So by hitting a star, you unlock a mini level, and you get a limited number of tries to beat that level. So actually, let me just do that. Let me get to the star. Cool. So these dice, the way they work is when you hit a die, you can match it, but if it doesn't match, it'll roll into a different color. So let me just show you. By hitting these dice, they're going to change colors. And so they change to yellow and red dies. And because there were other yellow and red matches above them, once they roll that color, they match all of the colors around it. So it's a great obstacle for adding skill to your game. And also, like we talked about in that level I just made, it gives players opportunities. For example, if I wasn't doing very well, I could just try to throw balls at these dice, and maybe they'll roll out in my favor and I'll get lucky and win. So that's one reason why they're so valuable from a game designer standpoint. So I'm almost to the star. So I'm going to hit it. And then I unlock the mini level, which isn't loading for some reason, which is very concerning to me. I'm glad I didn't upload the game to Facebook Live already. So it'll still be there when we get back. It's probably because I was editing levels or something like that. Oh wow. Well, it's not working. Anyway, normally when you hit this level, it would pop up a level that you can play, and you get a limited number of times to beat it. So to win this star level, like let's say you get 3 tries to beat it. The level could be very skill-based. It could be very punishing to many players who are new to gaming. But having these skill-based mechanics is important because it makes levels really fun. It really pushes the bounds of what's possible in these casual games. But I can include these skill-based mechanics because if you aren't able to do them, and if you lose the level, you aren't forced to replay it infinitely. The level simply goes away, and you can continue playing, and the next level won't be so based in skill. So that's why my game. That's one of the reasons. The biggest difference between my game and other games is that I allow you to make your own levels in the game, which is amazing. But one of the other less noticeable differences in my game between my game and other games is my game can be more based in skill, which offers players more investment because I don't force them to play the level over and over again. So that means I can make all these crazy modes in the future that are based in timing or physics. I could make bubble shooter modes that are like shoot 'em up games, like, and in addition, these emojis. So most bubble shooter obstacles are really basic, like maybe they change colors or they change turn to turn. But the first skill-based obstacle in my game is called the dagger. Let me show you really quickly. And remember to add colored bubbles to your levels. I'll add yellow. So the dagger, by clicking it, it opens up a bunch of settings. So these settings allow us to set where it's pointed. So I want it to be pointing right. We can set its rotation. So the main mechanic of the dagger is that it spins. So you can set it counterclockwise or clockwise. And you can also set its speed, the rate at which it spins. So I'm going to set mine to slow. And I'm going to pray that it works. Oh, it does work. All right, really cool. So I can't think of a bubble shooter where a mechanic like this exists. So the goal is you want to hit it at the right time. So the player it might be advantageous to shoot it so that it goes to the top right. If I shoot it when it's pointed down, it'll shoot down and it won't do anything. So I'll show you that really fast. So I'm going to shoot when it's pointed down. And so I didn't time it right, and I lost a really good opportunity to shoot a bunch of bubbles. Let's try it again though. All right, it's not moving. It's not in the game yet, so it's not too bad that this is broken. I'll just add it again, and you'll see what it does. So, but if I time it correctly and shoot it right when it's pointed in the upright position, it'll shoot and it'll clear a bunch of bubbles. So shoot now, and it cleared a bunch of bubbles. So it's an obstacle based on timing, and one of these really cool properties about these kinds of levels is that you can orient them so that they can connect with one another, and so you can make these giant chains of daggers shooting all over the place. And so it can require a lot of timing on the part of the player, but it's really rewarding when you nail it just right. So let's see if I have any of these dagger levels. And after I look at the dagger a bit, I'm going to play a level that a player made. I'm not even sure if the dagger levels are working right now. I could just make one really quickly. Let's do that. We have 20 minutes. So I'm going to fill up my level with bubble wrap. And then I'm going to add a couple colors to the top, say red and yellow. All right, let's try to make a chain of these. So I'm going to make them... It's also really fun to make maybe some of them go fast and some of them go slow. So by making them go fast, that requires even more skill on the part of the player because their timing has to be impeccable to hit them in the right way. So let's point this one actually upright. Oops, I'm gonna have to delete that. And so these daggers, they travel 3 spaces. So it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then it'll stop. So I'm gonna want my next dagger to be here. And I'm gonna point this one going right. And then I'm gonna do another one, 1, 2, 3. It's gonna land here. And maybe I'll make this one going upright again. And then let's say it triggers a bomb here. So a bomb blows up all of the bubbles within 2 spaces of it. So it'll clear out all of this stuff, and it'll also trigger other bombs. So I can place bombs every 2 spaces, and they'll all collide into each other. So I'm going to fill in these gaps. So if I time things just right, I'll hit this dagger when it's pointed upright, and it'll hit this dagger, which will hit this dagger, which will hit this bomb. So a couple things to say about this: these chain reactions can be really, really awesome, like rewards. So they usually come after a player's made a bunch of matches, and it feels really good to hit that dagger, which triggers a bunch of stuff to happen and scrolls up your screen a bunch. They can be really rewarding and cinematic moments for the player. And where it becomes interesting in a puzzle sense is like, we'll cover that in a second. Let me test it out. Hopefully it works. So if I mess it up, I lose a bunch of moves. So that's why the skill is very strong with this obstacle. So I'm just going to time it out just perfectly. And it caused this giant chain reaction and allowed me to win the level. Cool. So let me delete this stuff. So where it becomes really fun is when you have like a bunch of them and you have to kind of decide which one you want to hit and which direction. So let's just do that really fast. I'm gonna place the daggers down first. And then I'll put stuff around it and I'll make like a real puzzle out of it. And again, this obstacle is not in the game yet, but I thought it'd be fun to give you like a little sneak peek. So let's say one is here. Point it upright, slow. So it goes 1, 2, 3. So this is the point where it could land. This is the point it could land. So maybe I'll put a dagger in both of those so that the player has to have like a choice between which one to which direction to hit it in. So you have to kind of think about too, when the dagger is when this dagger right here is pointing to the left, that means, so if this dagger at the bottom is pointing to the top left, that means this dagger will be actually pointed to the top left too. When this dagger is pointed right, this dagger will point right as well. So you have to kind of think back like, okay, when this is here, then this dagger's here, and you kind of have to like trace the steps. So it's a little more complex, which is why it doesn't appear early on in the game. But I think it will be the next obstacle that I release in like the next week or so. And between that, we can put these colored bubbles. So I'm just kind of laying down some colors. And it's important, so because these daggers cut through bubbles and they can go any direction, it's important to make sure that players can't get into like really bad places. So like if this dagger cuts through a bunch of matches and then leaves a bunch of single bubbles behind that you can't match, that's a really bad experience. So you have to kind of think the player can shoot this dagger in any direction, and I need to safeguard my level so that no matter what direction they shoot it in, it's not going to break my level or add a ton of moves onto the level or something like that. Unless you're trying to make a really punishing level. So that's why I've kind of lined these matches to be between the daggers so that you're clearing kind of whole matches at one. So there would be a single blue bubble here. If this shoots up, you'll leave a single red bubble here. So those might be little spots where I would, after playtesting it and playing it different ways, I might go back and make some changes there. So let's add a little more. Maybe they choose to shoot this one so that it goes down here. So it would rotate one. So maybe I want to make it so that if they shoot it here, something up here shoots up. So it's going to be one little rotation. And so if I wanted to shoot it upright, I'm going to set it in the up left position here. So that when this dagger is pointed to the right, this dagger will have rotated and then will shoot upright. It's a little complicated to talk through, but you'll just have to trust me. You'll see in a minute. So again, I'm thinking about so now let's say that this dagger shoots up here. What do I want to have happen here? Maybe it goes upright again. So okay. Also, because I have multiple daggers pointed together at the same dagger, it kind of creates a lot of like complex decisions. So if I shoot this dagger and it hits this dagger, it'll go up left. If I shoot this dagger which hits this dagger which hits this dagger, it'll go up right. So like there's all these like it's difficult for the designer to imagine, which means the player will be difficult too as well. So that gives them these kinds of levels might be really encouraging for players to play over and over again, because they're not really sure what is the best way to chain these daggers together on top of the skill of it. And so when they play once, if they lose, they'll be like, okay, let me try to hit that dagger in the right position, or go after this other dagger first. So it presents all of these places where they can improve, or they can experiment on improving. I'm just going to go make it a little bit longer. Gonna continue to add matches in between these daggers. Making them kind of chunky so that if one dagger goes through part of the match, there's still a few other bubbles in that match that will provide a match for the player and won't be single bubbles that block the player off. I'll make another chunky one here. All right, let's add a couple more daggers. And I'm not going to think about these. I'm just going to put them in places, and maybe interesting things will happen with them, because it is complicated to go through every step of which dagger can be pointed which way. Eventually I'll have like a button that allows them to rotate, so you'll see when they point at each other, but this is still in development. Oops. Also, I'm hoping I laid these out correctly so that they don't break the game, because that would be a little anticlimactic. And I'm just going to fill in the rest of these matches. So it won't be the best top, but it'll be interesting to just climb through these daggers. Okay. That's good. So I'm going to test it out. Hope it works. Okay, it seems like it works. So players, when they're facing these daggers, they're going to be like looking at each one. So let's look at this bottom right one. So if I hit it there, that shoots the dagger to the left. And when the dagger up there goes left, that one goes down. So maybe that's not the best. Let's look at this one. So if I hit that one going up left, then it hits the dagger that's going right, which will hit the dagger that's going right again. And that'll make the dagger go up. So it looks like this is going to be a really good place. So I'm going to shoot it at the right time. Oh, so okay, that's interesting. So I'll try to remember that combination, and the next time I played, I might go the other way, and I'll slowly see which one's the best way to go. So let's see how I can play this to my advantage. So when they connect, it's actually going to drop them, so that's going to be really satisfying. So if I can nail these two skill shots, it's going to drop a giant part of the puzzle, which opens up the very top, if I can do it. Nice. So it's not too hard because the daggers are spinning kind of slowly, but there's a fast mode where they spin really fast, double the speed. So, and it also, if you have some fast and some slow, it makes it even more challenging because anything could happen. And so all these like little decisions between the daggers stacked together is like makes really interesting, unique skill-based levels. I'm gonna save it. I don't think it'll work if I reload it again. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, just making sure. Okay, so we're in like the last 20 minutes of the stream. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday between 7 and 9 o'clock. I do an Emoji Pop level design stream where I'll make levels, talk about the game, show you new stuff in the game, and at the end of every stream, I love to play the levels that you make. So you, by logging into the game at playemojipop.com, you can design levels using the emojis you unlock by playing the game. You can save these levels, and then you can share them on social media. And so I love creative games like Mario Maker and Dreams, and Fortnite has a creative mode. But one thing that always annoyed me about these creative games is that it's kind of difficult to get your levels and creations out there. It requires players, for example, Mario. If you're making Mario Maker levels, the players you want to play your levels, they have to buy a Nintendo Switch. They have to have your game, have purchased your game. They have to have a Nintendo Online account. They have to see you advertising your game on social media and write down the 12-digit code for it and input it. Or you have to get lucky that the game decides to highlight your level. But if thousands of people are making levels in Mario Maker, it's not likely that your level is going to be chosen to show off in the game. What I love about the creative mode of my game, Emoji Pop, is that every single person with a phone or a computer is a player of your game. So you can you make a level, save it. You can share a web link to it on social media, or you can send it to your friends. But if you share it on social media, everyone who sees it can touch your link and then immediately play your level. So literally, it gives you an audience of billions of people. And if you make I'm going to be adding really cool features that allow you to make insane creations in Emoji Pop. Eventually, you'll be able to make even different kinds of games using the complex emojis that I add. Eventually, I'll add logic-based emojis, which allow you, maybe you could make a calculator, or you can make all these insane things, and every single person will be able to play it with one touch of a link. So that's one thing that I really love about this game, is that it kind of takes place on the internet. So this is a level that a player made and sent it to me. So I'm super excited. At the end of every stream, we're going to be playing these levels that players make, and I'm going to be giving them feedback. So every level, I like to highlight what's great about the level, and I like to talk through the level, and so that the players know. Because as a game designer, one thing that's very important is to get feedback on your creations. You need to be able to tap into players' heads and understand why they're making the decisions they're making. So by giving players feedback, they'll improve as level designers, because they'll see people play their levels. And I'm pretty experienced in making these kinds of levels, so they're going to be getting really great advice on how to improve their levels and how to improve as a game designer. So I think that's why these streams, I think, are so important to the game. So let's play this game. So I'm noticing it's a 3-color level. I see the bombs at the bottom and the rockets in the middle. So already there's some interesting decisions. I think some players would make this red match, which would open up those rockets. You could maybe even save. I have a red and blue. I could try to save moves by making this red match here. And then I bypass all of that little puzzle. And I could either hit these rockets here or hit the matches up here. Let me hit this blue, and then I can hit this yellow. Cool. So I'm liking based on what you just saw me play, maybe that wasn't the intended experience that the designer intended, so they could modify the level so that I have to engage with those bombs at the bottom. But it's I think it's interesting to have these not as obvious decisions. It gives players on replay, I would be looking for what else can I do differently, and so having these unique decisions and unique shots to take to save moves, I like that as a feature. I'm also noticing that they have dice here, so I do like that. I could, if I didn't have the right color that I needed, it'd be useful there. One thing I'm thinking is, I feel like I always have a great match to make though. So these dice, if maybe there were more colors in the level, and let's say there's 6 colors in the level, and I didn't have one of these 3 colors, being able to shoot at this die and maybe rolling it into a match, maybe that would be more optimal. But they don't seem too advantageous the way they are now, so I'm just gonna kind of skip them. So I can make a cross match here. So these bombs are a good clear point, but I don't even need to shoot them. I can kind of just make the match anyway. So it would be cool if maybe these areas were a little bit more. One thing I'm noticing is in certain spaces so far, I was wishing that there was more matches that I had to make before I made these drop points to kind of get me a little more invested in what I was doing, and then that makes the satisfaction of dropping things even stronger. So I'm noticing a lot of these bombs and stuff, I think they seem like they'd be essential, like they serve as good mini goals, but in actuality they aren't really too essential. So I'm just gonna skip them for now. So on editing your level, it might be good to try to use these bombs in ways where they're super advantageous and the player kind of has to interact with them in order to save moves. So here again, I'm just gonna kind of skip the bomb. Cool, so I'm liking this. This part of the level is really cool because there's large matches of dice. So I could just make the matches, but I'm going to be wanting saving moves. So what I want to do is roll them, and hopefully they roll red, and then it'll save me a move because I won't have to make that dice match. But even more advantageously, I could roll them in between these two colors and try to make two matches at once. And this is a strong choice because there's so few colors, there's a good chance they will roll into the colors that are above. So I'm really liking this part of the level a lot. Cool. See, so right there, I was able to clear two matches that I didn't even have access to. So that's a major win. That makes me feel, as a player, really smart. Players could do this bank shot, but it's a little difficult. Cool. So again, I was able to use the dice and get lucky. I like the use of these dice in a 3-color level. It's really cool. Yeah, so, and also one thing I'm noticing is this part of the level feels very different than the beginning part of the level. Dice feels a lot more prominent than the beginning. But also, like, this can be totally cool. So one type of level that I haven't really covered yet is, like, adventure levels. Or adventure levels are kind of when the mechanics evolve over time and the level can, like, really change. So right now, since you're beginners, the people watching, I'm kind of focusing on making cohesive levels that are very clear to players. But it's really fun. Like, once you start getting, like, a grasp of those main concepts, it's so fun to do what this person did and make, like, crazy levels that evolve over time, and each section is very different or uses totally different obstacles. I think that's really cool. I'm going to continue to interact with the dice. I think if I had a yellow, I could make a really big match appear, which would drop all these dice. So I want to be interacting with these dice. This seems like a really fun puzzle, and it's kind of hard to make these shots, which is really cool as well. So maybe this top left match, where there's these two yellows, maybe make that multiple colors like we have on the right side, so that it can't just drop this whole section. I like that there's solid matches to make on the side. So there's, like, a low risk way to play the level or a higher risk way. Like, all these choices means, like, the one thing I'm thinking about consciously while playing this is, like, oh, I wonder what would happen next time. Like, so already it's giving me these hooks. Like, what if I did that? What if I did that? That's going to make me want to play the level again, which is really awesome. Cool. So I didn't get the luckiest match, but they still matched at least. So I got the yellow, and now it's definitely open. So I'm going to hit the yellow up here. Alright, I'm going to make these blue. I have 2 blue bubbles, so I might as well just make this blue dice match. And then followed by the yellow. So I also really like this structure of the level. These long, like, columns coming down. Like, it's a really basic, easy to read pattern, but many of the parts of the level I don't have access to. Like, especially these sides. I could access, like, the bottoms of them, but I couldn't access the tops because of the large chunks coming down the middle. And so that feels really good to finally open them up, and then I can make these long, better matches. So I really like that aspect of the level, that, like, if there weren't these columns in the middle, it'd be really easy to just make match. Every match would be super powerful, but I have to kind of build up to that moment. So I'm really digging this part of the level a lot. So also I like there's basic matches along the side. But the higher matches, of course, are more advantageous. But because of the angle, it's very difficult to hit them. And again, the way that these things come down, I can't really bank yet. So it kind of makes me have to shoot up. It makes me have to play with some skill, kind of. The preview also shouldn't be showing. That's a bug that I will fix very soon. I know exactly what's happening. Oh, so I barely made it. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and make this one so that I can scroll up. Cool, so now we're at the top. I kind of wish... So this is a pretty difficult thing to do. Oops. So this is a pretty difficult thing to do, but it's like in these levels where you're like chipping away and climbing to the top, it's really good to have like a clear point that takes you into the top. So this is something that we kind of talked about a little on the stream. Um, I I really like tops that are like little puzzles on their own, that really like that players have to spend like at least 8 moves on. Because imagine if I didn't have very many moves left. If I get to the top, uh, I would only have like 1 or 2 moves. Since this top is so short, like maybe I wouldn't really get a chance to be invested in it. I didn't have a chance to really feel like I was going to be able to win ever. So it's good to like at the very end, players see like, oh, I'm at the top. This is a decent sized puzzle. I have 8 moves to win it, and maybe there's no way they can win it, but still like the fact that they have to spend 8 moves at the top means that they feel like they have a chance. They get invested in the top, and that's going to make them want to play again. So that's maybe one thing I would change. Also, I feel like the level really never reaches its climax. So it's suddenly I'm at the end, and I just have to make these final matches, which are a little more boring. And they're only boring because the rest of the level was so fun in the middle. So one piece of feedback I'd also like to give to this designer is it'd be cool if you could incorporate like the dice strategy of having like to somehow whether it's the dice strategies that I use below or like the structure at the top. It'd be really awesome if like the players had to like use the strategies they learned in order to clear these top matches. I think that would feel like an amazing like conclusion, and it would make the whole thing feel like really cohesive. Let me just play it as it is now. Cool. So I like that the top middle matches, like they can require some skill for you to make those matches. So that feels really good. Like it's like a risk versus reward kind of thing. Gonna make this red match, and then all I have is the blue, and I've won the level. So I won with 7 moves. I think part of that reason is because at the beginning I saved a bunch of moves the way I kind of skipped the bombs in a way I think the designer didn't intend. So I would suggest you lower the amount of moves it requires to make it a little more difficult. But maybe if you fix the beginnings so that I can't bypass some of the puzzle you put there, maybe the move count would be about right actually. Cool. So that was an awesome level. I love that it's the first level I've played from a player where the mechanics change over time. I think that's coming from someone who's been in the industry making these levels. The amount of experimentation we could do on that front is a little less, because one thing we're always, especially in most casual matching kind of games, like I described before, they follow the Sega map model. So if a player doesn't get a level and get stuck there, that's a major problem because they're not going to be able to progress until they do figure out the level, and that usually results in them eventually quitting the game. So the idea of adding like different concepts or different obstacles like part way through the level, that's something that could really confuse players, especially beginners. But because of the nature of this game, because like not every level has to be like easily comprehensible and beatable. It means that we can totally explore like these ideas of like journey levels, like adventure levels, where over time like things change, things can get crazy. Maybe use every obstacle in the game, or maybe there's like a bunch of different parts, or maybe levels are really long. So I'm really excited to see what players do to like experiment with like the bounds of this design, which we've never really been able to in commercial games before. So that's going to be the end of the stream. I'm going to wrap it up here. That was really fun. I think we made a really awesome level. I'll show you again what we made. So we designed... Oh, maybe I didn't save it. Oh well. Yeah, so we designed a DNA structure level at the beginning, and we didn't use any obstacles. So I think that's a really good challenge for people who are starting out. Can you make... Oh, actually, it's in this tab. So this is the level we made. So this is a really good challenge for beginners. Can you make a level without using any of the complicated emojis and still provide players a really fun, choice-based experience that they want to play over and over again? And I think by making your level not something you have to, if I didn't have any of these spaces here, it would feel like we're just digging through the whole level. It would be kind of like a burden. But by pairing these basic emojis with like skill shots where you're kind of having fewer colors means more choices, but also having these skill shots where you're kind of shooting it between these gaps and clearing bubbles from below. Like, I think that was a really good approach for making a really fun basic level. So I would encourage some players maybe to do that. And then after you make a basic level like this, if you're really interested in making the more complex levels, it's fun to try to twist it. So you take a basic level, and then let's say, okay, maybe I want to add dice to this or something like that. Like, what's the best way that I can do that? Do I want to put dice in between the gaps? Do I want to replace some of these with dice? So by making a basic level that's fun at first, you've proven that it's fun, and then it's a lot easier to add onto that with a more complex mechanic for more advanced players. I showed you the dagger emoji, which is going to be coming up in the next week once I finish fixing all these bugs. And I also showed you the concept of the light bulb emoji, which I'm going to fix after the stream. So the light bulb emoji is really fun because they change each turn. So once you get to... I encourage you to play the main game because you get to unlock all these emojis. Once you get to level 6, you'll be able to use the light bulb in your own levels. And that really opens up the ability to make dynamic levels that change, and you can create all these really interesting patterns, or the way the bulbs change colors you do a lot of really fun stuff with this, and it kind of prevents levels from being too staticky. So by having obstacles that change over time by each move, it means players have to reassess the board each time. Things are changing, and it makes it a lot more complex and a lot more room to experiment. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to cover today. As you can see, I have a bunch more emojis that are shown in that aren't even in the main game. So we have so much to learn in terms of game design. I'm hoping to give players practical game design skills so that they don't have to learn coding in order to be able to create games and learn game design. So I went to school for 4 years. I didn't really get to become an expert at game design until I got my first game design job and was actually given a level designer's job so that I make levels. And so by making levels every day, and by learning how to make them better and giving feedback and receiving feedback about them, you're going to learn really amazing practical game design skills that won't just apply to Emoji Pop. You're going to be able to use these principles all over the place with all kinds of games. So that's one reason I would suggest you really try to design levels and to share them on the stream so that we can learn level design together. So thanks for watching my stream, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock.